Congrats to the ASHT and the Iconic team for making it to the semifinals. Give yourselves a round of applause. So as you guys know, today's debate is going to be 5 minutes first speaker, 4 minutes the second and third speaker, first minute and last minute protected. You have 2 minutes to prepare a reply speech and 2 minutes to give your reply speech. And as you all know, you keep your mask on if you're not speaking, and if you're the one to speak, that's when you could put your mask off. Do we have everything right? We can start now. Okay, first speaker proposition team.
Can I start? See, schools are more than just formula instilling institutions. Schools are more than places where we acquire the knowledge of math and physics. Schools are places where we spend most of our lifetime. Because on average, students spend an amount of 9 months at school and 3 in their home places. And how this is important and how it's much more significant than the world may have ever noticed is because children are protected when they're occupied by all of these lessons, and they're taught even other societal principles and social cohesion skills while they're in these institutions. Now, throughout my speech, I'm going to emphasize mostly on how important opening schools is, not just to the physical and mathematical knowledge we acquire, but also in protecting us against several things that have been attacking students all around the world. So now our case today is basically around what's happening in Rwanda, because several countries have different cases going on, but I'll be referring to other countries as well. Now, our arguments that bring to the table today are: 1, protecting girls from sexual assaults, teenage pregnancies, early marriage, and all of that. And then our second argument is reducing the idleness in the youth that leads to drug addiction, according to the numbers. And the third point is reducing the chances of school dropout. Now, before I go into explaining our arguments, allow me to clarify and remove any concern you might have about the contagion and all these other problems of how COVID-19 is a pandemic and spreads very fast. So we believe that there are reasons to be concerned that COVID-19 is going to spread, but we have measures that we can put in place that will help curb the spread, and therefore it will still make points to advocate for the reopening of schools. So the first thing I want to talk about is that in all schools, e-learning is going to continue taking place for every student who has the capability to continue using electronics to study. Now, in boarding schools, for example, if I might clarify, we have like, let's say 50% of students who can afford electronic learning and others who cannot. And therefore, we'll have this number of students who cannot on campus and others studying from their own homes to reduce the possibility of contagion, and therefore make it easy for these, for the policies of 1 meter distance to still take place in these schools. Now, for public schools whose funding does not allow any student to access e-learning at all, we're going to continue the program of building more infrastructures and facilities to allow the 1 meter social distancing policy to actually take place. So what I'm basically claiming in our case today is that we're willing to take and do anything as long as it means that we're going to have all of these children occupied and in school. And the other thing we want to talk about is that private schools will continue e-learning because they have proven to have the capability to do so. Now, we realize that you might have concerns of the economic capabilities we have of doing all of this. Now, to put you at ease, we're going to invest money. We would be investing in curbing all these effects I'm going to show you from how students are staying in home. Because, for example, teenage pregnancies and child labor and early marriages are costing the country. We have organizations fundraising weekly to help these girls who are getting pregnant early. So if we invest this money and instead trying to develop the facilities to help every kid go back to school, we feel like we're going to have a strong enough economy to do all of this. Plus, we have global organizations like World Health Organization, the UN, and several others collecting money from other countries to help fund underfunded countries. And therefore, we believe that as long as we're able to tie education to other priorities, then we're going to find funding definitely. So in this debate, if we're able to prove how much of a priority education and going back to school is, then we will have been starting this on the right track. Allow me to give you an example of the Spanish flu that happened in 1918. It was also a pandemic, only that it did not spread all over the world. Now, what happened in this time is they did reopen schools, and believe me, the economy was way worse back then, but they did because of one. They wanted to protect these children, and also they wanted to eradicate the possibility of kids dropping out from school due to due to staying at home for long and staying away from their books. Also, third, they wanted to tie education to other priorities, and therefore they were able to do this because they proved to the whole world and their funding sources how important this is. Now, going back to our arguments, we want to, your point.
What's the visibility of your plan?
That's what I'm going to prove. That I think probably even mentioned it before. So protecting girls from teenage pregnancies, like I said, we have numbers that show us that 15 girls per week actually get assaulted, raped, or even impregnated. And all of these girls are being helped by our government today. And now we believe that if we actually tackle this, we're going to have a reduction of up to 2 girls per week possibly getting assaulted in this way. And now this is a huge and significant change if you allow and look at this in the same lens that I'm using. So we want to employ reopening of schools and take into consideration all these measures to protect every student, but bearing and keeping in mind that it is important that they go back to school. Also, the drug addiction and being idle thing. We believe that when children are idle, it is when they are most exposed to dangerous activities like drug addiction. And when they are addicted to drugs, it sometimes even takes them to places where they're in contact. And therefore, it means that they're not only idle or addicted to drugs, that they're also possibly going to contact COVID-19 because of all of this. Allow me to show you that we are bringing a solution to the COVID-19 and to all these problems students are acquiring from staying home. I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Chungo Moses. I'm the first speaker from Team Opposition. First of all, what is taking place currently? I mean, the current status quo. She said children are being occupied through studies. So then they don't go to get pregnancies, the 15 girls per week. But according to the statistics given by the Ministry of Local Governance through the article released in Igihe on 14th August 2020 this year, it says that girls who were getting early pregnancies during before the pandemic were at 80%. But this year it reduced to 50%. Since the pandemic started up to now. And things of idleness and drug addiction, there's some things that Ministry of Youth has been doing since the pandemic started. It has occupied students through methanation of culture on internet and incrimination of instrumental and incrimination of increasing culture-based youths through a program called Murinde Twiyubakira Umuco, which was released in April 2020 on 14th, yes, April 14th, April 2020. And she said idleness through drug addiction. But I would like to let you know that according to the statistics, as I've been saying from the Ministry of Local Governance, as Minister Shaka understands, highlighting through that article of EGH, he said that drugs addiction have been reducing in youths. That not only the pandemic can make people go through these drugs, that the pandemic didn't distract anything from the children who are at school who went back home because of the pandemic. And I would like to inform you that a day after Rwanda reported her first COVID-19 case, in mid-March, schools were among hearted activities in a bid to contain the pandemic in the country. Which means we had only one person in March, and we are in September. And according to the current status quo, it says that it stated that they would have even opened the schools in September. But because of the problems we're still getting, I mean, we're still
Point of information.
We're still getting. Rwanda was still getting. They increased the time frame of which schools would reopen because there were problems that were encountered, and they're saying they will reduce dropouts. But according to Ministry of Education released report, the Minister of Education highlighted that students will not be dropping out from schools because they will set policies that govern students going back to school. And she said they're increasing infrastructures. But I would like to first ask them, when are schools starting? Actually, do tell us what time schools are starting. And you said you're going to go to get fundraising to have funds and investments. But I would like to let them know that 3 schools that are being built that are shown on TV, that in Yaruguru they've built 1 school, that is not multiplying all the schools. As you know, the government of Rwanda is currently emphasizing 30% of students to be studying, and at work they are doing that. 30% of the people are the ones allowed to go in the room. in one room, meaning those 70% will need other rooms. So I want here that you are building how many schools in Rwanda, yet you're not suggesting and telling us fundraising, I mean, money is coming here. Instead of fundraising, are people going to fundraise the money? Because as we know, many people in Rwanda, they don't have the money. As recently, the government has chased workers, and now 30% are the ones working. In the market, 30% of the people allowed to go in the market and sell. So, where is the money going to come from? And I would like to really ask the proposition side. The proposition side. Give us the effectiveness of your plan, sources for proof that really we have to take your plan to take this things of reconstruction of schools. Even the Minister of Education highlighted that people are still building schools. As in September, when we should have reopened schools, the activities of construction were at 60% through to conclusion. So I want them to come and tell us this is the time we're opening schools, and the third speaker would highlight who are the people fundraising the money. Is it all Rwandans? Where are the investments going to come from? Because as we know, Rwanda has got many donations from IMF, from every world organization. So this is burdening us to the future people who are going to pay the money. So their second speaker should come here and highlight this. And where they're getting payment for teachers, because we don't even have the money. Thank you.
Okay, so the precarious speaker, every point that he has raised, he has decided to focus it on just because we're opening schools, but disregards the fact that the government have opened workplaces, markets, and all these points don't apply to markets that have more people, workplaces that have more people, but only applies when we're dealing with the future of our country. We have noted that. They come on here, they asked, when are we going to do this? We showed you the moment, in the meantime, people will continue to do e-learning as we continue to build these schools so that we can reduce the class ratio of students in a classroom, and when this finishes, students start immediately. They asked the money, where we're going to get the money. We told them from the beginning, the money that is going to go into solving these early teenage pregnancies, into these drug addictions, into having an idle population is going to be way more than building a couple more schools to have people go to school and actually get something to make a life out of for themselves. They come here, they claim that before the percentage was at 80% and now has dropped to 50%. First of all, that could be of many reasons and not because there was a pandemic. I'll actually educate you on the reason, because they brought sexual profiling, where nowadays when people apply for jobs, they have to give a sexual history and see if they're accused of sexual assault. And that's very irrelevant to the point, because we have seen that these people, these girls that are being assaulted by their family members. Not people at school, not other places, but their parents, their uncles, their grandparents in their homes. I'll give you time when I'm done. You refuse to take my point. So again, they should not come here talking about reductions and not actually correlating the reason why there was this reduction. We'll show you why there was this reduction. And even if it's 50%, that's still a number that concerns us, and it's going to increase if girls stay home with the people that rape them, the people that assault them, when we can ensure that they're at school and they're learning and they're going to make a future for themselves. I'll give you time. The justification for drug addiction not going to increase is aside from the New Times. Well, we're going to take that. We're going to assume that that's true. But is that actually true? Do you think that there's a reduction? We're going to take information from an article on the New Times to justify why there's been a decrease in drug addiction. We believe that there's going to be an increase because, do you know why people take drugs? Because they're idle, because drugs are available. They're going to be home, no school, no jobs, nothing. Do you think they're going to sit there and sing Kumbaya all day? No, they're going to go meet with other people. And the virus that they're trying to curb, these people are still going to find it because they're still going to go outside, because they're idle, they're going to take drugs. One or another, they'll still get the virus. So we'd rather have institutions in place to have these people equipped with the knowledge that they need. They talk about how numbers are growing, and that's why schools were predicted to open in September, but eventually didn't. And we say numbers are rising, true. But then if the numbers are rising, you're willing to open up workplaces, willing to open up marketplaces that even more, we have more people, but you're not going to be willing to open places where your population will get the education, where you can even at least better curb these things. So if you cannot predict the number of people who get the virus in workplaces, but are still going to, out of your way, open the workplaces, why not do the same for the future of your country? Those are the refutations I have. I'll go on into our case today. So, I'll take your point. Just because. How concrete is
your plan?
How concrete is our plan? We have said this from the beginning. We are adhering to the measures that the government has set. They want 1 meter between people. We're building more classrooms so that the people are not close to each other. We say people study online if they can afford it. That's just how concrete our plan is. It adheres to the measures we're setting. No, I'll give you another point as I'm done rebuilding on our case. Yeah, it's concrete because we adhere to the measures you've set. We ensure that the public, I mean the youth is engaged and is learning, is not idle. We ensure that girls are not getting raped or assaulted at homes. We ensure that these kids continue to get an education and make a future for themselves. And we have shown you exactly how concrete this is, and in case you're not following, I guess you would have picked that up from the get-go. So we showed you our model. We say boarding schools and public schools will reopen the moment we're able. We're going to build these extra rooms. We showed you how the money we're going to invest. They should not even. This shouldn't be a topic about where will the money come from. Is this money worth the investment? It's worth the investment because the money you're going to pay to fix all these issues is way more. So these organizations that are in charge will see the necessity, which is what we're trying to prove today, and we're going to invest that money into building these rooms for students to go to class. We show you how people, some who can afford e-learning will continue to do e-learning while they'll continue to do e-learning until we're able to have these whatever. Now, the government today will let people go to work, will let people go to workplaces, to markets, but will not let students go to school. Shows where their priorities are, and we believe that the students are the future of the country and should be invested in fully. I rest my case on that simple note.
A very good morning to you all. The precurrent speaker just came here. I just asked her a question. How concrete is your plan? We need something that are based on facts, not on what you think. They are just here giving opinions. We really need facts. Show me exactly how your plan, it is very concrete. Come here and give me clear examples. Show me like we are going to be going this and this and this. Show me the sources. How are your things coming? Where are your things coming from? I asked the first speaker. I would like to ask you again, what's the visibility of your plan? I want you to answer. What's the visibility of your plan? 30 seconds.
We showed you how everything has been happening in several other countries and how it happened in the past.
When I said visibility, do you get what I mean?
Visibility is the practicality.
Please, I don't need you to be explaining to me what visibility is. When I ask you what's the visibility of your plan, I want you to show me clearly how you are sure about what you're doing, that it is going to be working. Those countries you're giving me examples do not clarify that Rwanda is going to be getting the same thing, because you're not on the same level as Rwanda.
Point of information.
And then another thing, you just talked about things of e-learning, and then you are going to be opening schools when the reconstruction is done. I have a question for you. Wait, I need to ask you, the second speaker. Would you like to stick on the status quo?
The status quo says adhere to these measures. The measures we're setting in the schools. So technically speaking, we're adhering to your status quo.
She said it herself, that they are going to be reopening schools when the construction is done. Today, the status quo states that the schools should remain closed until we get the vaccines of corona, and then when our things as the economy has also developed, which is what we as the opposition speaker, we are sticking on. Yes, she just said that they have opened markets, blah, 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 but then, mind you, we have the selective lockdown in Rwanda. When they see that something is not working well, they're going to be locking it down, which is why the schools are also still locked down. Come here and prove to me that we do not have that selective lockdown. She based on it, saying that if we have open markets, why not also open schools?
Point of information.
They're just trying to be solving the problem of unwanted pregnancies.
Point of information.
Before corona, didn't we have unwanted pregnancies? Didn't girls get raped? You're just saying that they're not going to be raped because they are school, but mind you, we also have information. They can also rape you. That is something which is not sufficient. We need you as the government to show us something that is more concrete.
Point of information.
Which has the visibility. Show us like when. If you come and tell me when the construction is done, we are the government. We expect you to shine brighter. Don't come here and tell me that when it's done, when is it going to be get? When is it going to get done?
Point of information.
We already know that some people they have the problems of not working. 9% of the Rwandans today, they have lost their jobs, and then you want to be putting kids back to school. How are our parents going to be getting money? As the school fees, we have that problem. We need them to show us clearly how is that sufficient. And then another thing, I would like their third speaker to come here and show me First question, why would you open schools? By what time? With clear examples and sources, and how it is visible, and then how is it going to be done, and where the funds are going to be coming from. Second question, dear judge, I need you to highlight this. I need them to show me how concrete is their plan. And then the third thing, to what extent do you believe that it is going to be put into practice and then you're going to be successful? Because we already know that here, some countries, they have opened schools and then closed again because of various reasons. And then another question, how will you overcome the consequences if you reopen and then another thing comes again? And then another thing, we need you to show us clearly which schools are going to open. And then and then another thing, this is the work I'm giving to your third speaker. Please, I'm speaking. And then another thing, I want you to, what is the visibility? I say that, do you believe that your things are extremely patent? Thank you. I
would like to remind everyone to keep their mask on.
Oh, sorry.
Sure.
Proposition decides to ask very many questions and bring statistics without justification. So first speaker comes here and gives statistics, 15% how this and that. We have heard that, but there's no justification for that. How do you exactly account that when people are idle, they can't actually go for drugs? How do you account that when people are outside here idle, they won't go for sex and have early pregnancies? They cannot just bring statistics here and not justify how that relates to whatever they're claiming for. So they came here asking us for statistics since that's what matters to them. So we showed them how 15 girls per week today are getting pregnant, early pregnancies. Yet 2 girls per week when we were at schools were the ones who are getting pregnant. This is from savingchildren.word.net. That's what matters in your debate. And they also asked for exactly how can you justify that when people are exactly how they wanted us to justify how exactly how this crease has already been there, but this is a total lie. If actually who or other international organizations are allocating funds to girls who are actually getting early pregnancies, this is proof enough that this is a problem that needs funds. And I will give you time later. And they asked us how feasible or concrete. Feasible is how the plan can actually work out. Number one, we have showed how this has worked in 1918 when the economy was way worse than today with no technology. Number two, we have shown Ivory Coast, Cameroon have reopened schools and it is working for the economy. Not that they're not facing the pandemic. So this is, if this has worked in the past, is working today for other countries, it can work today. And they talked about selective lockdown. Now, dear judges, we have to see that if selective lockdown can be done in markets, how can it not be done in schools? So since we're actually, if a school, I'll give you time later. Now, if a school can report cases, we can shut it down for a while instead of risking the whole school to actually get sick. And they asked us how will the parents pay for the school fees. Number one, we want to go for pay as you earn. Number two, we want to go for installments. Now, installments, if I pay 600,000 per se, and my parents can afford 100,000 per month, then we can actually go for that. If another parent can afford 50% of the fees, we can go for that. It is pay as you earn in installments. Now, we're going to wait for the vaccine. Number one, it is 18. I'll give you time later. It is 18 months, according to who, and according to and 10 to 15 years, according to historyofvaccines.com. Now, are we going to wait exactly for 10 to 15 years for a vaccine to actually be set
and so that we can actually go back to school. And I'll give you time later and how we will deal with the consequences. Now, they want to deal with the consequences of people going to markets, they want to deal with the consequences of people going to adults going to work, but they don't want to deal with the consequences that might occur when we are talking about the future of our economy, the future of our country, since this is going to, the people we're educating today are the people who are going to serve the economy of tomorrow. Now, this takes me to the harms that we have brought today, which are our arguments. Number one, we're protecting girls from rape and prostitution. Number two, it's idleness that brings in drug abuse and other things. Number three, there is a significant increase in school dropouts when children are not exposed to school or are not going to school for so long because they lose interest. This is a psychological fact, and they do not want to account for that. We have shown all these harms and how they're going to affect tomorrow's economy, and the money that we are actually we're going to invest tomorrow when we have a labor that is not skilled enough because we have not educated our people today, when we are having a lot of children, early marriages and early pregnancies and all these other problems. We have shown how this will bring a more negative impact on the economy than what they're trying to say today. So this brings me to our case whereby we are advocating for schools to actually reopen and remaining with the measures that were stated.
Thank you, dear speakers. I'm Chungo Moses back for the third speech. So, we asked them the time when the schools are going to get open. Their second speaker answered us that they're going to open when construction is already done. But according to the current status quo, when the vaccine will be coming, schools can't open, yet schools they can't open, yet we are constructing so that we can reduce the number of students who are studying when are remaining in class. So we want we want to reopen when the vaccine has come, when the construction has already been done. Meaning they're advocating for what we are advocating for. And she said the vaccine is coming in 18 months to come. But according to World Health Organization overview of this month, even the meeting His Excellency President Paul Kagame attended, they said the vaccine is going to get done by the end of this year, not 18 months as they had said before. And she said justification of our statistics. I gave you statistics, and if people are locked down, they're not getting out. People were locked down for 40 days, meaning those 40 days that were there for the lockdown reduced the number from 80% of the people who are getting pregnancies and to what? To 50%. And that's what we said. And she said we have to justify. So we've justified for our statistics. And how can you dare say that 15 girls get pregnant per week, and we're getting this from children.com?
POI, please.
From children.com. Please, dear judges. And she has said that according to 1918, the economy is renewed after the pandemic. But where the circumstances of this year compared to those of 1918, and she said Ivory Coast and Cameroon that have renewed they have reopened the economy and the schools the people are going to school. But I would like to tell you that Cameroon and Ivory Coast, they are middle income earning countries. They're not compared to Rwanda. Rwanda is a less developed country, meaning we can't take the circumstances that Rwanda is pitting to what Cameroon and Ivory Coast are getting. And they said selective lockdown, they're going to select some schools and put them through the lockdown. But I would like to tell you that schools, we want quality education. The government of Rwanda, you the government, you want quality education. How are you going to tell me some people are going to study and others are not going to study? If they spend a year in a lockdown, meaning those who are in senior 4, they're going in senior 5, and those who are in lockdown, they're going to stay in senior 4. And I would like to say visibility. So you've given us your visibility, but I would like to tell you, if your visibility is when you will wait for the construction of schools, and the reason as to why we are still in vacations is that the schools are still under construction, means you are coming to our side, because we shall open when schools have already been complete through construction. And they said reduction of drugs, but I said, according to current status quo, it shows that they're decreasing, they're not increasing. Then if they're saying that drugs are the problem, then they're decreasing. What is the problem? And basing on measures that the government have said. If the second speaker, Natasha said that, if they are basing on the measures the government has said, and we see that there's no problem at the citizens, so why should we go back to school when we have not get the vaccine? If the vaccine is coming by the end of this year, let's wait for the vaccine and go to school in January when everything is done. as the schools who have been reopened, because we see 40% is the one resigning for construction. Again, we've asked the funds. Who are they going to fundraise? Who are the people going to fundraise? They never answered. So if they are advocating for, we go to school and they say pay as you earn. So how pay as you earn? My second speaker told you 90% of people, of government workers, they're at home. They're not getting the money. So if you're paying as you earn, if I earn zero, what am I going to pay? Where is the school fees going to come from? Meaning what you're advocating for is not going through what is there. So if you're advocating for what you're advocating for, the problem you have is construction. Then it will be done. Come to our side. We take the debate. Unless they've never even given us their funds. So, yeah, thank you so much.
You have 2 minutes to prepare your reply speeches.
Quick reminder that if you add anything that wasn't said before, it doesn't account. So refutation of something that wasn't said before will not account, will not be put in consideration. It's because of them. They could have handled it better. Unakuja third speaker yaje akavuga pay as you earn. Ntabwo ari kuvuga third speaker, yari kuvuga second speaker because they don't have the time to read it. So ariko anatashobora kuzifuta no baciye mu batsinze. Kubera ko Natasha should have said something. Maybe this debate is going to be about why they should be voted or something. Exactly. Okay, if we're basing out on why, let's not go about how. Let's not go about the funds. Let's not go about visibility. You just it's like there are so many loopholes that they will not have. Your mic, touch your mic.
It is necessary, like it deserves the investment. Like there's
it makes sense. Let me say, how is it going to work? It's so big.
In the beginning they said in the beginning they said some source.
Exactly.
The speaker from the opposition side. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. Second speaker from the opposition side, coming back for the replying speech. The motion of today states that this House would reopen schools. What I expected from the proposition side, when I came here myself, I asked them, are you sticking on the status quo? But they said no. But then as they made their arguments, they were actually falling in the status quo. My third speaker came and showed you that today what is being done, it is that already. We are waiting for the vaccine. Their third speaker came here and said, we are waiting for the vaccine, and then she went to sit. That was the last thing that she said. I heard it myself. You said that you were going to be waiting for the vaccine. Yet their first speaker, when they come here, they were giving arguments that the numbers of pregnancies will keep on increasing, but at what extent? I asked them that question myself. I asked them to give me things that are concrete, things that are based on facts, not on what they are thinking, not on what you're giving your opinions. I wanted that to give you that to me so that you could prove to me that you are taking this debate. I gave them a whole lot of questions, which was the loopholes in your plan. I asked them why schools would open. Actually, what's the main reason? Because they said that it was about pregnancies, but then we showed you. My first speaker gave the statistics how even that pregnancy was there before. So then you're just saying that it is because of pregnancy and another thing, and then we showed you that what you're sticking on, it is the status quo, because they said that we need to remain locked down because there is nothing nothing wrong with the status quo. And then we asked you where your funds are coming from. They never tackle that. For God's sake, how could you come here with a plan and then start telling me that people are going to pay as they earn? He just gave an example. What if you're earning zero? Are you going to be paying zero? That was the thing. And then they were saying about fundraising. So then how, actually, where? Like how? What was the fact about that? How was it visible? I asked them the visibility of their plan, but they did not actually convince that. We showed them why we need to be sticking on the status quo, because there was nothing wrong. And even their side was coming in the status quo. Thank you.
See, they had great numbers, 50%, 90%, 100%, 120. But they did not justify it. We brought 15 girls per week, and we justified that. We even gave you savechildren.org.net. You disqualified it, but I'm giving it to you, and I'm justifying why they are increasing. Because kids are forced to do illegitimate things if it means they're going to get money to support their families and to meet their own luxurious or basic needs. Also, the speaker comes up here and brings a lot of new content, a lot of new numbers, and cases about lockdown numbers. So I'm not going to refute that since I'm not allowed to, and please help me and disregard everything he said. Also, they said they will not open schools because there's no vaccine, but they will open marketplaces, they'll open workplaces, they'll open every other thing but schools. Are we not, do we not care about what's happening to these young people who we're not catering for? Because they are the future of our country, and we're willing to just let them die simply because there's no vaccine. Why can't we put these measures in place, and even other stricter ones, but just let them go to school if it guarantees their security? Also, they asked about our funds. We said we're going to reallocate from the effects that we would be curbing if we do not let them go to school. About the numbers of girls who are getting pregnant, raped, all these justice costs and every other thing that comes with locking schools down. And we talked about global organizations catering for underfunded countries. And they talked about how construction is in the status quo, and we said we're going that and many more to help public schools that have overcrowded classes to actually be able to cope with the status quo that says to emphasize on physical measures. So we're saying we cannot answer visibility, but we can answer feasibility. So this plan is practical because we showed you that it happened back then when we did not have enough resources like we do today. Plus, countries are catering for each other because that's why there's existence of global organizations. So what have we said in this debate today? We have shown you why education is a priority, because it is much more than just physics. We have also shown you how this is practical, because we're not going to, because so many laws says everything is already happening in accordance to what we wanted to achieve, and it's not the status quo because schools are not open in the status quo. Just that makes it totally different from what is going on. So I raise my case on the simple fact that they were not able to engage with any of the harms we bring to the table, and that is big enough to make education a priority. I raise my case.
Okay. This debate was very interesting. You can give yourselves a round of applause. You guys did good. Okay, first things first. I love the fact that all of you were, how can I say it? All of you were kind of tackling the question that the others said, which is very good. You did not disregard almost all the questions that the others asked, which is very good. It means you're paying attention and you're actually listening to what the others are saying. But a few remarks that I'd like to say. First things first is about the drugs and sexual assault. You come here, you give statistics about 80%. You come here, give statistics about the 15 girls and everything. So all of you guys could be true, just as all of you guys could be wrong. The only thing I wanted you guys to show me is show me how you think that the 15 isn't worth it, or how you think the 80 isn't worth it. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be null. You're going to tell me yours is better. You're going to tell me, Nako, you're going to tell me I have 15. You're going to tell me I have 80. But at the end of the day, I want to show me how 80 or 15 is better than the other. And because you failed to do that, it's almost as null. It's almost as if you didn't give that, because it did not outweigh the other. Secondly, I'd like to talk about is should have paid more attention, because I believe they said about where the fund is coming from, the UN and the WHO. First speaker, I believe I'm not the only one that heard that. And second thing is that you should have correlated more when because you were bringing the same point about how Ivory Coast it worked, how Italy it worked, but you did not correlate how it makes sense that it could work in Rwanda too, if that makes sense. Because you're saying something that worked in Italy in 1918, how does it actually work back here in Rwanda? Because it's still different countries. Even if 1918 they didn't have that much money, but they had little resources. But that's the same thing, now they probably have a lot more money, but they probably have a lot more to spend on too. So I just needed you to correlate how it actually makes sense, that if in Ivory Coast it can work, in Rwanda it can work too. Like, show me the correlation. Like, if you're telling me something is working in the US, show me why you think it could work in this country too. And I think this debate, I think you guys have had a struggle. I think if you guys could have mentioned that this debate is more about why the school should reopen and probably not how it should reopen, it would have created less loopholes in your plans and maybe led to you having more opportunity, if that makes sense. Because you guys were talking about, just as to say, I think they had a good point when they say that it's more of your opinion rather than facts. You're telling me that you're sure that you're going to have 2 girls per, but who says that? You say that, but who are you? Does that make sense?
But the 2 girls were like from the past when we were in school.
Oh, right, okay. That makes sense. But what I wanted you to do is more, they also talked about the questions that they asked. 1 second. Sorry. How successful could it be? How to overcome the consequences. And I think one of you said that if they can overcome the consequences of the market, they can overcome the consequences of the schools. But I think it's your burden to show how you're going to overcome the consequences of schools, if that makes sense.
Exactly how by adhering to the measures, besides students are distanced. And we showed you how.
No, I think the question was more of if this actually doesn't work, what's going to happen next? Because it's a big risk.
Well, our argument then became, if you're willing to risk it with a place where there's less rules, like a marketplace, then you should be willing to risk it at a place where we have shown you that we're going to issue these measures.
What I'm trying to say is that shouldn't it be your burden to show how you're going to overcome the consequences? Because if you're going to say if they have helped in the consequences of the market, I think it's going to be a whole lot of debate about how they're dealing with the consequences of the market, if that makes sense.
Basically, our train of thought is it's not that different, right? So it's kind of like a rhetorical question of if you can do this for that, then you can easily as well do this for
Question.
Okay, sure. Anyway, and then to this theme, I believe. Where did I write this? I'm so sorry. It's too many things.
Selective lockdown.
Oh,
Something like selective
you want to
lockdown.
talk about it?
Yeah. So like about what you're saying, like you're saying you're going to apply the same measures that you use to solve the problems even in the markets. But these people have mentioned, these people have mentioned about the selective lockdowns. They have showed you how in the current situation, places are closed because there is a reason. So even they have showed you how schools are closed because there are no solutions like to apply those measures. Like they talked about selective lockdown. I think you remember the selective lockdown.
Yeah.
So
Also, I think there's something you mentioned, and you shouldn't say things like that. When you say that girls they're going to be raped tomorrow, they were raped yesterday. You say something along those lines. You didn't say that, but that's when they say about if they're going to school, they're not going to be raped. And they clearly state that even at home, the family is the one that's going to be raped. And you say that, well, at schools too, there's men, so they can be raped. You don't want to say that. That's a little insensitive. It's like you're saying,
teachers,
no wounded are going to be raped, or something like that. And that's insensitive. That's not how you should tackle their burden. Maybe you should say something like, you have proof how these girls are going to be, are going to have more risk of being raped at schools. But you don't want to say, well, they're going to be raped everywhere. Because what solution are you giving to that problem at the end of the day? So, yeah.
Selective lockdown, I believe Joanna was on the stage. She mentioned that it's the same for schools too. If we see any rising number in a school, we shut it down.
Yeah, that's, They said about the third speaker. Yeah, you noted they said that the organization, like you may find that one school is locked down for the whole year. Then another school moves on. What would be that kind of organization?
But then that's why from the beginning we said we're going to keep a threshold between e-learning and going to school.
I think that's what I wanted to talk about. I think you guys didn't get clearly what they said, because they say that we're going to have people studying from home and others studying from school. The first speaker said it.
Yes, a little bit on his third speech. It was full of a lot of new content with no point of information, so we couldn't refute or say anything about it.
But, and also, one thing I wanted to say about the... I wanted to say, wait, 1 second, I'm speaking. I was going to say, I think you shouldn't have said the pay as you earn. It's a last minute thing, and they're going to try to refute what you just say pay as you earn, because they say things like that, and you won't have the time to refute them, because you're the last speaker. So it would have been better if Tasha says it, and if they ask you a question, then she can answer it. Yes, because you're being unfair to yourself. Because you're giving a point last minute, then if they try to say something against it, you don't have the way, you know? And so that makes it bad for you. That's what I wanted to talk about. So we're done. We're going to give the verdict at the end. So shake your hands.
You can't.